The product of an SA between a young girl and her step grandfather would turn out to be the 15th woman who ever received the end of life punishment for unaliving a child. Her name was Lisa. Lisa was the product of her mother being impregnated by her step grandfather. Now, her biological mother immediately lost custody of her, and it was said that Lisa was SA'd as a toddler by her foster parents. She never really had a relationship with her biological mother, but when she did, her biological mother treated her terrible and nicknamed her Pig. Lisa herself, she was also hit and struck with extension cords and moved from one foster home to another foster home. So obviously had a very troubled upbringing. Now Lisa eventually met a woman named Marcella, and Marcella had a son named Davonte. He was born prematurely and he had kind of like intellectual and developmental disorders. So when he was 9 years old, they found him spirit no longer in his body, and at 9 years old he weighed 35 pounds and had cuts and bruises. They said 250 scars all over his body, including on his wrists and ankles where he had been perpetually bound with extension cords. Now, when he was in first grade, that is when CPS started getting called by the school. So they decided that that was just too much of a risk. So they basically just took him back and never sent him to school so they could try to fly under the radar with school. But even with that, CPS was called numerous times. I think it was 4 times. One time where him and his little sister, who was 1 year old, was removed from the home for 1 entire year, and Marcella had to work to get custody of them back. And part of the stipulations was that she could no longer be with Lisa. So she eventually did get custody of them back, but Lisa came back into the picture. And I'm guessing the cycle of abuse absolutely continued to the point where this child was absolutely emaciated. And when they did the autopsy on him, it was because of malnutrition and dehydration that he had finally passed away. When they called 911 to say that, they said he had just stopped breathing, but the medical examiner found that he had rigor mortis and had at least been out of his body, his spirit gone for at least a few hours. So his mother, Marcella, took the plea deal and she got life in prison with no possibility of parole. But Lisa would not take that deal, and she was convicted and received the end of life penalty, which she already received, and her spirit is no longer in her body. But what a tragic story. And I can't help but think if Lisa had gotten the kind of love and support that she needed, that she would have never enacted these things. Some of these things were very similar to what she experienced, and that this whole situation could have been avoided if she wasn't a traumatized child that grew up to be an abusive adult.